What do witches and wizards actually dream about when they close their eyes? Can they lucid dream? Is astral projection real in this world? Is there dream travel? And what happens when the most dangerous dark wizard of all time figures out he can weaponize your sleep? These are the 7 types of dreams that exist in Harry Potter's universe, and some of them are far more dangerous than anything you'd face in a Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Because in the Harry Potter universe, falling asleep is a battlefield, a prophecy machine, a communication device, and in at least one case a literal doorway between life and death. So, let's get into it, starting with the most basic category, normal dreams. And yes, even in a world of flying broomsticks and talking portraits, wizards have completely mundane, boring, muggle-like dreams just like the rest of us. Harry Potter's dreams life is actually the best documented case study we have, and not all of it is dramatic prophecy and Voldemort visions. Some of it is just a teenage boy being a teenage boy. When Harry was young, living in that cupboard under the stairs, he dreamed repeatedly of some unknown relative showing up to take him away from the Dursleys. Zero magic in that dream, zero deeper symbolism. A kid wanting to be rescued, and that's it. Just pure heartbreaking wish fulfillment from an abused child. Then you've got the genuinely silly ones. At one point, Harry dreams of Neville Longbottom and Professor Sprout waltzing around the room of requirement, while Professor McGonagall plays the bagpipes. That's it. That's the whole dream. The dream meant absolutely nothing. A brain doing its thing. Wizards are human, and their subconscious minds generate the same kind of random nonsense ours do. But here's where it gets interesting. By the 6th book, Harry starts dreaming about Ginny Weasley, and there's this brilliant line where Rowling tells us Harry was extremely grateful that Ron couldn't read minds, given that he was dreaming about Ron's little sister. That's Rowling at her sharpest. One sentence and you know exactly what kind of dreams those are without her spelling it out. Normal adolescent dreams, completely universal, except in Harry's case there's a genuine risk that someone with mind-reading abilities could actually see them. And speaking of Legilimency in the Fantastic Beasts films, Queenie Goldstein is established as a natural Legilimens, someone who reads minds instinctively without training. The implication is genuinely unsettling. A natural Legilimens standing near a sleeping person could theoretically hear their dreams like an open broadcast. The sleeper has zero defenses, zero occlumency, an unconscious mind spilling everything. So normal dreams exist in the wizarding world. They're shaped by waking life, by anxiety, by desire, by fear. The magical context changes the set dressing, but the psychological mechanics are identical to ours. One thing worth flagging: the wizarding world has a term for dreams triggered by magical interference versus dreams that arise naturally from the subconscious. The distinction matters because a wizard who wakes up from a nightmare has a legitimate reason to wonder whether it was garden variety anxiety or something external poking around in their head. Muggles never have to ask that question. A bad dream is a bad dream. For a witch or wizard, a bad dream might be an early warning system, or worse, evidence that someone is testing their mental defenses while they sleep. Now, prophetic dreams. This is where things shift from psychology into something distinctly magical. On Harry's first night at Hogwarts after the sorting ceremony and the feast, he has a dream where he's wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, and it's talking to him. The turban tells him he needs to transfer to Slytherin. It grows heavier and heavier, tighter and tighter. He sees Draco Malfoy laughing at him. Then Malfoy morphs into Snape, whose laugh turns high and cold. Then a burst of green light and Harry wakes up. At that point in the story, you read it as an anxiety dream. New school, new house, a kid worried about where he belongs. But by the end of Philosopher's Stone, you realize every single element of that dream was screaming the truth at Harry. Voldemort was literally hiding under Quirrell's turban as a parasitic entity. The turban telling Harry to go to Slytherin was Voldemort's influence. The high, cold laugh was Voldemort's laugh. The green light was the killing curse. Harry's sleeping mind had detected the danger long before his waking mind had any clue. That's what makes the Harry Potter dream mythology so effective. Rowling draws on one of the oldest traditions in human storytelling, because prophetic dreams appear in the Bible, in ancient Greek literature, and in virtually every mythological tradition across the world. Professor Trelawney, for all of her fraudulent predictions over Sherry, was right about one thing: dream interpretation is one of the oldest forms of divination. In the wizarding world, it's called Occlumency, and it's a legitimate magical discipline. There's even a textbook on it, The Dream Oracle by Inigo Imago, required reading for Trelawney's 5th-year divination class, and the author's name is a beautiful piece of rolling wordplay. Imago is Latin for image, and in psychology it refers to an idealized mental image formed in childhood that persists into adulthood. Inigo sounds like enigma, so you've got a book about interpreting dreams written by a man whose name essentially translates to mysterious image. Rowling doesn't miss. It's worth noting that Trelawney's broader prediction system, reading tea leaves for the Grimm, interpreting crystal balls, analyzing star charts, all feeds into the same magical framework as dream interpretation. Occlumency is just the nocturnal branch of a much larger divination ecosystem, one the wizarding world takes seriously enough to build into the Hogwarts curriculum. What makes Occlumency different from crystal gazing or tea leaf reading is that dreams already have a track record in this world. Harry's turban dream came true. His corridor visions led to real events. Trelawney's classroom exercises might have been a joke, but the discipline itself had centuries of documented results behind it. Results the Ministry of Magic cataloged in the Department of Mysteries, which houses an entire room dedicated to prophecy. Dreams and prophecy share the same shelf space in the Ministry's archives, which tells you how seriously the magical government treats them. The third category is the most terrifying in the entire series: Horcrux connection dreams. These aren't dreams in the traditional sense at all. They're the result of the psychic link between Harry and Voldemort. Created the night Voldemort's killing curse rebounded and accidentally turned baby Harry into a Horcrux. The way Dumbledore explains it is chilling. The curse that bounced off baby Harry apparently forged a connection between his mind and Voldemort's, and Dumbledore believed that when Harry's mind was at its most relaxed and vulnerable, asleep for instance, he was sharing the Dark Lord's thoughts and emotions. When you're asleep, think about what that actually means. Every single night, Harry Potter goes to bed knowing his unconscious mind might drift into the consciousness of the most dangerous wizard alive. Sleep, the one thing every human being needs, becomes a vulnerability. And it's not just the Voldemort connection that makes sleep dangerous in this world. Dementors, those hooded creatures that feed on happiness and positive memory, are known to intensify fear and despair in everyone nearby. The implication, though never stated outright in canon, is that prolonged Dementor exposure would turn ordinary dreams into unrelenting nightmares. They affect your waking mind, and then they colonize your sleep. And it escalates throughout the series. Before his 4th year, Harry sees a vision of Voldemort and Peter Pettigrew in the Riddle House, plotting murder, watching through Voldemort's eyes without fully understanding what he's witnessing yet. Then in 5th year, it intensifies dramatically. Harry starts dreaming of long corridors and locked doors, night after night, the same corridor in the Department of Mysteries. His mind is being pulled towards something Voldemort desperately wants. Then comes the night during 5th year when Harry sees Arthur Weasley being attacked by Nagini the snake. And he is not watching from the outside. He's seeing it from the snake's perspective. He is the snake. He feels the fangs sink in. He feels the venom spreading. That dream saves Arthur Weasley's life because Harry wakes up and alerts Dumbledore immediately. But it also terrifies everyone around him because it raises an obvious and horrifying question. If Harry can see through Voldemort's eyes, can Voldemort see through Harry's? The answer is yes, and Voldemort weaponizes it. Once the Dark Lord realizes the connection runs both ways, he deliberately plants a false vision in Harry's mind. Harry sees Sirius Black being tortured in the Department of Mysteries. It feels completely real. It looks completely real. Nothing in the vision itself distinguishes it from the genuine connection dreams Harry has experienced all year. So Harry races to the Ministry to save his godfather, and it's a trap. Sirius dies in the battle that follows. Harry's guilt afterward is devastating. He blamed himself for being foolish enough to fall for Voldemort's trick, for being so convinced that what he'd seen in his dream was real. That's the central lesson about dreams in this entire series. Dreams can tell you the truth. Dreams can also lie to you, and the consequences of not knowing the difference can be fatal. This is why occlumency exists. Dream protection is its own discipline in the wizarding world. Occlumency is the magical practice of protecting your mind from external penetration, and it's specifically taught to Harry to prevent the connection dreams from continuing. Dumbledore reassigned Snape to teach Harry how to seal his mind, how to make it blank and unreachable so Voldemort can't slip inside. Harry fails spectacularly, partly because occlumency requires emotional discipline and Harry is a 15-year-old drowning in unprocessed trauma, partly because his teacher is Severus Snape, a man who despises him. Snape stores his own worst memories in a pensive before each lesson because he doesn't trust Harry not to see them, and the mutual hostility between student and teacher poisons everything. Dumbledore later admits that Snape couldn't release his resentment toward Harry's father, and that hatred corroded the lessons from the very first session. Harry left each one with his mental defenses weaker than before, not stronger. The tragedy is compounded by one detail fans rarely consider. Dumbledore himself was one of the most accomplished Occlumens alive. He could have taught Harry personally. He chose not to, partly to maintain emotional distance from a boy he knew would likely have to die, and partly because close contact risked Voldemort sensing Dumbledore through Harry's mind. So the most important defensive skill Harry needed was handed to the worst possible teacher, for reasons that were strategically sound but personally catastrophic. Dumbledore's chess master tendencies cost Harry the one thing that could have kept his godfather alive: a solid night's sleep. The failure of those occlumency lessons is one of the great tragic turning points of the series. If Harry had learned to protect his sleeping mind, Sirius might still be alive. The fifth category is visions, distinct from connection dreams because they don't always flow through the Voldemort link directly. In Deathly Hallows, Harry witnesses Voldemort searching for the Elder Wand, and sees the theft of a wand from the wandmaker Grigorovich, committed by a young man with golden hair and a laughing, reckless face. That young man turns out to be Gellert Grindelwald, Dumbledore's former closest friend and one of the most powerful dark wizards who ever lived before Voldemort rose to power. Harry also dreams of Horcruxes throughout the final book, and the imagery is layered with meaning. His dreams were stuffed with cups, lockets, and mysterious objects floating just out of reach, while Dream Dumbledore helpfully offered Harry a rope ladder that kept turning into snakes. The objects he can't grasp are the Horcruxes he hasn't found yet. The rope ladder is Dumbledore's guidance, and the snakes represent the betrayal Harry carries, the gnawing suspicion about Dumbledore's hidden past that haunts him throughout the entire final volume. There's also a haunting dimension involving the Resurrection Stone here, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, because it literally summons the dead back across the boundary between life and whatever lies beyond it. If Limbo is a dream state that the living can enter, the Resurrection Stone is essentially the inverse, a device that pulls the dead partway back into the waking world, the same membrane dreams sit on, approached from the other side. The 6th category breaks every rule we thought applied to dreams in this universe: dream communication. The clearest example comes not from Hogwarts but from Ouagadougou's School of Magic in Africa. At Ouagadougou, students don't receive acceptance letters by owl. Instead, the headmaster or headmistress sends a dream messenger, which appears to the child while they sleep. When the child wakes up, they find a token in their hand, usually an inscribed stone. Let that settle for a moment. A magical entity enters your dream and leaves a physical object in your waking hand? That means the dream state and the physical world aren't separate at all. Something crossed over. Something tangible moved from one reality to another through the medium of a sleeping child's mind. That is the closest thing in canon to actual dream travel, and it's treated almost casually in the lore. It's just how Ouagadougou handles enrollment, except it's absolutely not a small thing, because it proves that in the wizarding world, dreams aren't merely mental experiences. They can function as bridges between realities. And then there's the 7th and most profound dream state in the entire series, Limbo. When Voldemort strikes Harry with the killing curse in the Forbidden Forest, Harry doesn't die. He finds himself in a place that resembles King's Cross Station, bright and clean and silent except for a small, flayed, whimpering creature huddled under a bench. That creature is the fragment of Voldemort's soul that had been living inside Harry. Then Dumbledore appears. Harry asked the question that defines the entire philosophical framework of dreams in this universe, whether any of this is real, or whether it's all been happening inside his head. And Dumbledore gives him the answer that still makes people cry 2 decades later. Of course it's happening inside his head. But why on earth should that mean it's any less real? Limbo exists inside a person's mind, and it's both real and not real at the same time. It looks different for each person who enters it. Harry sees King's Cross because that's where his journey into the magical world began, the station where everything changed. It's a dreamscape with physical consequences because the choice Harry makes there to return to life actually takes hold. Now, can wizards control their sleep? Absolutely. The potion for dreamless sleep does exactly what it promises. The drinker falls instantly into a deep dreamless sleep, completely sealed off from visions, connections, and vulnerabilities. It's essentially magical anesthesia. Madame Pomfrey administers it regularly in the hospital wing. Beyond that, there are sleeping charms, enchanted slumbers, and bewitched sleep states that can suspend a person in something close to a dreamless void. The wizarding world commands the mechanics of sleep in ways we simply can't, using that control medicinally, defensively, and sometimes offensively. The pensive adds another fascinating dimension to all of this. If dreams are a form of memory, and the pensive can store and replay memories, then theoretically you could extract a dream from your mind, pour it into the basin, and walk through it again in 3 dimensions. You could examine details your sleeping mind registered but your waking mind missed. You could revisit a prophetic dream and look for what you overlooked the first time. The pensive surfaces things buried in your head that you don't even consciously remember storing. It would be the ultimate dream journal, which makes it all the more ironic that Harry was terrible at keeping his actual dream diary. Trelawney assigned dream diaries in divination class and Harry neglected his almost entirely, which is deeply ironic given that he probably had more genuinely prophetic and dangerous dreams than any other wizard in recorded history. A pensive would have solved that problem. All the visions, connection dreams, and fragments of Voldemort's consciousness that bled through, preserved in 3 dimensions and available for analysis. Instead, Harry had a notebook he forgot to write in. There's also a remarkable corner of fan creativity that's grown up around dream magic in this universe. A fanfic called Dreamwalking by Professor Quill 101 follows Harry as he pulls himself out of Voldemort's mind and into the landscape of dreams, exploring what unlimited power with someone else's unconscious actually looks and feels like. Another story called Dreams on fanfiction.net builds an unlikely friendship between Snape and Harry through years of shared dreams, where neither knows the other's real identity. And a recent fic establishes dreamwalking as a rare side effect of combining sleeping draught and calming draught, creating a whole framework for wizard-to-wizard dream communication. Outside of fanfiction entirely, there was the real-world phenomenon of teenagers on TikTok attempting to reality shift to Hogwarts through meditation and lucid dreaming techniques. It erupted a few years ago and spread everywhere, with people essentially trying to accomplish in real life what dream messengers accomplish in canon, cross the boundary between the dreaming mind and another reality entirely. Even in The Cursed Child, set decades after the original series, dreams remain central to Harry's story. His nightmares return, Voldemort's voice breaks into his sleep again, his scar hurts for the first time in 22 years. The connection he believed was severed when Voldemort died turns out to be less finished than anyone realized. Harry Potter is in his 40s and still can't sleep safely. And here's what ties all of this together. Rowling once acknowledged that people had suggested to her that everything after the cupboard under the stairs was Harry's dream, that he went mad in that cupboard and invented the entire wizarding world as a way to survive. She didn't write it that way, and the fan consensus firmly rejects the theory. But the fact that it's even plausible tells you something essential about how deeply dreams are woven into the DNA of this story. From the very first night at Hogwarts to the limbo of King's Cross Station to the nightmares haunting a middle-aged father of 3. Dreams in the Harry Potter universe are never just dreams, they're magic. They're weapons, they're prophecy and communication, and the thin membrane separating life from death. And sometimes they're Neville Longbottom doing the waltz while McGonagall plays the bagpipes, which honestly might be the most terrifying one of all. So yeah, Harry's dreams were full of snakes, flayed soul fragments, and creatures that had no business being inside anyone's head. Turns out the waking world has even more to offer. All 13 races in the wizarding world explained in detail. That's your next lesson here at Stickman Hogwarts. Click now before Nagini decides to visit your dreams personally.